Welcome everybody to the Ottawa City Commission study session. Start with public comments. Do we have any?
None today.
Thank you. We'll move on to items for presentation and discussion, which number one item will be a presentation by a daycare provider. Greg, come on up. Where'd you go? I was pointing at you. You coming up too, Paul?
Well, I'm going to start.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate again those of you that were able to make it up and visit the daycare center up in Gardner, which is reflective of what we're hoping to obtain here in Ottawa. As you know very well, the reason I'm involved is it's very much related to workforce. That is our key stumbling block to getting industry and business to grow and also to come to our community. So as you know, I've been spending a lot of time with childcare and a lot of time on housing, and those are the two key pieces, not unique to Ottawa. What I'm hoping is your leadership would be unique in how we solve this issue and set us above others and truly make us a leader in this issue and not a follower. It is a serious situation. In 2016, we had 22 family child care providers, and now we have 17. In 2016, we had 5 centers. Now we have 3. In 2016, we had 5 preschools. Now we have 2. In the county, there's over 1,300 0 to 6-year-olds who need care that currently there's not a slot for them. Only 37% of the needs being met currently with the providers that we have in the county. Large majority of these folks are right here in the city of Ottawa. Currently, there are 0 infant openings in the city of Ottawa. As I've said to you before, this needs to be a public-private solution. One of the tasks that's assigned to me is getting industry to come into one of your largest investments, the Proximity Park, $26 million between you and the county. Nobody's knocking down the door to come to Proximity Park. We have to go after them. We have to sell our community, we have to market our community, and we have to be providing the services that the industry needs. And they need workforce, and workforce needs childcare, and workforce needs housing. So we can't sit back and wait and not do things aggressively, in my opinion, up front to show the industry that we want them to come here. So to me, that means we kind of have to think outside the box, as I've mentioned before. I encourage you to think strongly about incentives for this new daycare, and I also urge you to think strongly about incentives for existing childcare. We have to do something to kind of break this open. As you know, I'm also visiting extensively with industry and business about providing benefits through their benefit programs for childcare, and thanks to the state legislature, we've got some really nice tax incentives that provide 50% relief for business and industry that do that. But it's really, if we want to solve this in Ottawa, it's going to have to start, I think, right here at this table with your leadership. So I encourage you to please think long and hard about how we can attract this and what we can do to encourage this opportunity for us. So I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for making a visit to Gardner. So I'll turn it over to Greg and Steve, and they can tell you more about their thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for taking today to spend a little time with us. I want to introduce Steve Stallard. Steve is a principal in our company. Steve grew up in Topeka, Kansas, and lives in Fort Worth now, Dallas-Fort Worth area. But he loves Northeast Kansas, and several years ago he came to me and he said, why aren't we doing something in Northeast Kansas? And so he's been investing resources in Northeast Kansas for several years now, and it's a business, but it's also a passion and love for him. So it's nice to have somebody that likes Northeast Kansas as much as I do. I came back here after being gone for 20 years and won't leave again. So I also want to introduce Marcia Putin, Marcia is the operator of our center in Gardner. Many of you were there last week, and I talked a little bit about her there, but she's what makes this whole thing work. It's an outstanding center, an outstanding operator, and we couldn't be more happy with being a partner with somebody like Marcia. And Marcia would be coming to Ottawa with us, or her company would be. She currently employs 2 or 3 people from Ottawa that are driving from here to work in Gardner now. Just wanted to take a few minutes and explain how we got here. You know, Paul approached me 2 years ago, Paul.
Yeah.
When we started the daycare in Gardner, and said, you know, he wanted to find out about us and about what we're doing. And over time, Steve and I have developed a relationship with Paul, and Paul sold us on this community. And it's because him that we're here, and it's become because of Paul that initially that we felt like Ottawa would be a great place, and we could come in and be a good city partner with you guys. You know, this opportunity wouldn't be possible if we don't do a private public partnership. It's just because of the economic situation with daycares in Franklin County. Franklin County daycares, and you can talk to Marcia about this after I've finished talking, but public partner, or the reimbursement for daycares in Franklin County is about half of what it is in Johnson County. And to economically make a daycare work, we're gonna need some help. I mean, that's just the way it is. We can't, and I think that's probably why you don't have a lot of new daycares and other new businesses like that coming into. It's just, you know, it's just a matter of economics. And when Marcia pays her employees $13 to $15 an hour, plus gives them benefits and 401k plan and insurance, and most of the mom and pop daycares that you have in town, they don't do that. And we were in a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and some of them haven't raised rates in 5-6 years, Marcia. And to get a state-of-the-art facility like we would come, you know, we can't come in and do it for $100 a week per kid. It just wouldn't work. I think what we bring something that is gonna help your workforce significantly. It's gonna help your employment base, and it's gonna help you economically. And Marcia's probably gonna bring 26, 28 employees. You know, 16 or 18 of those will be full-time. You know, they're gonna be in, the average salary is gonna be $13 to $15 an hour. So economically, we're gonna be doing things to enhance the community, but the biggest part of what we're gonna be doing is providing opportunities for employers that are needed. We've met with Advent, we've met with American Eagle, we've met with, I don't know, Paul. Walmart, we met with some of the smaller companies too, and they're all saying, please, what can we do to be part of this? And so the need is there, obviously. We just got to figure out how to make it work, and so that's why we're here today. You know, if you're willing to work with us, I really think we can do something really special for Ottawa and for the surrounding area. I think you saw the daycare that we had, and it's more than a daycare, it's a learning center. And these kids are, you know, the building is being built with every kid in mind. You know, for the most part, they get promoted every 6 months. And Marcia's curriculum is, you know, some of it's social based, some of it's educational based, and depending on the age, but there's a purpose to everything we've done in that building. Did I miss anything?
I don't think it's good. We're really bullish on Ottawa. I mean, you guys are a college town. You're close enough to the big centers. You're right on I-35. I mean, there's no reason why you really shouldn't really be crawling. So, as you know, you need a base, economic base to build on, and employees need daycare. And so that's why we're here.
Any questions?
Yeah, just one, I have a couple maybe. I'm trying to think. So what have you heard, or what other municipalities have they done to assist in this, and what do you envision us doing?
Well, I think we've talked about several options. You know, one is we've got 2 pieces of property over in the North Industrial Park that you know, we think would work for us. We talked about industrial revenue bond to cover the taxes on, or something like an industrial revenue bond, help cover the taxes. I know Paul's been working on some programs maybe for the, you know, electric, water, sewer, maybe some kind of reduction there. we're kind of, we're an open book, we're transparent, we have needs and we want to make this work, but it's going to take, partnership with both of us to do it.
With your setting in Johnson County, in Gardner specifically, did you receive that private-public partnership that you're seeking here from the city of Gardner?
Yes, I mean, we don't talk specifically about what we do with other cities. I don't want to get into a competition. They do this and you do that. We pick the cities because we think they're right for us. Yes, we do have some partnership with them. It's a little bit different situation there because of what you can charge for daycare.
But you're also in Topeka, yes, and so, right.
We're all over.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So I was just thinking like the
Yeah,
ones that
yeah.
are
I mean-
relatively
I
local.
mean, Johnson
and-
County, Shawnee County, it's very relatively the same. Franklin County's not. It's not even close, and Marcia can talk to that. Yeah, we would, obviously here, we would have to have a partnership.
Did those larger companies you met with, American Eagle, Walmart, mention anything to you guys about them trying to help? Like you said, public-private partnership,
Well,
as a benefit for their employees.
Sure, what they are
assisting in that
going, what
also.
they are considering doing, Advent Health is also one that I didn't mention, I don't think. What's that? NCO. Then what they're looking at possibly doing is coming in and saying, okay, I'll guarantee you 5 spots. And if I don't have 5 employees taking it, I'll still pay for that. If I only have 4, I'll still pay for that 5th spot. And then they would want to be able to use that, as a slot. So that's what they're talking about doing. And American Eagle's talking the same thing. Advent's talking the same thing. So that gives us some comfort in that we know we'll have some spots reserved, but we don't know what that number is. We don't have a clue right now.
The other thing is they're looking seriously at adding an employee benefit as childcare, which would help all of our providers in town. And with the 50% tax credit that the state legislature passed, those companies, if they give $1,000 in childcare benefit, they can get 500 of that tax credit back. So it's a 50% return on their investment just for that. Not to mention the return on childcare issues that come up. So in addition to supporting this, they're looking at benefit, and what we're asking them is to look at benefit packages for all the employees, no matter where their kids go. Because it's an issue that people aren't entering the workforce because they have to stay home and watch their child.
Is that incentive based on population of, is that based on population? I know that some incentives in the last legislative session were based on population. The incentive that you're speaking of, was that based on population?
We meet the criteria in Franklin County for that incentive.
So yes.
That was, yes, the answer is yes. That was a law that was on the books, and the Brownback administration removed it when they removed income tax because you didn't need that tax credit. Taxes came back, so the governor has put that, it existed before, they just refunded the program and put it back. And it's effective, I think, July 1st.
Cool.
Yes, we qualify for it.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
Will you be, and you're absolutely right, we have a childcare issue. I know that many of us around the table here have children, and we understand that. I think everybody here understands that. This isn't just a city of Ottawa issue. It's also, I'm anticipating that you're going to welcome individuals from outside the city of Ottawa to be taking part and be a part of your center. Is this something that you're bringing to the county for looking for solutions?
No, we're having a conversation with the city of Ottawa. We're looking for leadership from the city of Ottawa on this project. We're not trying to put one municipality off on another or do a kumbaya. I'm seeking leadership from you on this issue. I'm not asking you to balance it with other communities. I'm asking you to solve it, to help us solve it. It's an important issue. And if you want Proximity Park to be occupied, this must be taken care of. So no, I'm asking the city of Ottawa to do something to help us get more daycare. If you would like to speak to the county, you're welcome to do that, Commissioner.
I hear your strong tone. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, therein lies the thing where I requested a meeting with you and the county because I wanted to have a discussion about Proximity Park.
Yeah.
And I certainly want to have that discussion pretty soon because this is an important thing that's needed for our community. And I agree, it's something that could help cement somebody coming to that area. But we do all have to work together. Yes, it could start with us, but we do all have to work together.
I do not disagree with that. But I'm trying to get
Sure.
somebody to step up and be a leader.
Appreciate
I
that.
would like the city to do that.
And I want to say I'm really impressed with your Gardner facility. Thank you for the invitation. Marcia, thank you for the tour. That was very educational for me to see how that all works. It's been many years since I've dealt with childcare, so that's changed quite a bit, obviously. But
I hope you understand why I felt it was important for you guys to
Yes.
see it. It wasn't that I was just trying to toot our horn or anything else. I really thought it was important for you to understand what we would be bringing to your community.
it helps to hear it and to see it and feel it, and we, all three of them there, so yes, thank
Do
you.
you, oh, sorry.
That's okay, I'm done.
Do you guys typically, when you're building one of these, Topeka, anywhere, use local contractors to build?
Good question.
And we've already talked to local contractors here.
I echo what Commissioner Skidmore said. I actually, in my other job, actually was able to see Marcia Center prior to the new location. And so it was a huge improvement. Yeah, it's huge. And how she painted it was exactly correct. So it looks great.
She's great.
Yes, she's great. The facility's great. It's good.
So Marcia, I heard you address this when we were over there, but talk to me about the daycare rates, because we have a lot of daycare. Are you talking about the facilities that are set up almost as a commercial daycare? Or are you talking about the home daycares where people run their, when it comes to their rates, not being up where they ought to be?
Okay, so the state of Kansas provides subsidies for people that qualify
Right.
income-based.
Right.
And each childcare center, I imagine family childcare centers, I think they're rated a little bit differently. But
Right.
annually, we have to submit a form that states, this is what we charge for students of this age group, this age group. And then I believe they they might average it, I'm not sure how they figure it out, but they take what the average is being charged in that community, and that's where they base what their subsidy is on. So a center on 151st Street is charging for an infant $450 a week. I'm at 183rd Street and I'm charging $310. You get out here to the point where you're crossing that county line, it drops almost to like $150 to $160 a week. Same same child, same amount of hours, that kind of thing. It's just purely based off of what people are charging. So if the current average is sitting down here, the state's gonna put their subsidy down here. If the current average is sitting up here. So if we come in and get all of the centers to kind of come up, I think that would benefit everybody because that average is gonna come up. And then they're gonna be able to say, you know what, I can charge 180, I can charge 190 and bring their reps, because with some of these centers, they were like, yeah, we haven't raised our rates, because it's a very heart-centric industry. People feel for other people and they just, when somebody says, hey, I can't afford that, somebody doesn't wanna say, well, you know what, they take that hit. So you're gonna have the woman who owns, I think it's Apple Barrel, something like that we met with, and she was like, I feel bad. I feel Apple Garden. And she's like,
So close. You're good people.
different meeting. She was saying that, she feels bad because, she has family coming to her and it's where she's taken the hit and, it's harder for her to support her families or to provide her employees a better wage or benefits and things like that she really wants to and be able to do that. But I think if, we worked together and everybody kind of strategically came up together, those rates would increase.
So does the subsidy go to the parents? Does the subsidy go to the person who's paying for the child to be there? Or does it go to the daycare provider?
It's essentially like a debit card. So that parent would receive those funds. They would be able to pay weekly. They would be able to pay biweekly, monthly, whatever they'd like to do with those funds. And then whatever their family portion that would be rated, they would pay that. So for instance, if you were given $150 a week subsidy, your rate was 180, you would pay that 150, and then the parent would come out with a 30. So the parent receives the funds on their vision card, just like a food subsidy. Right, yes, kind of like a debit card.
So if a grandparent is just taking care of a child, that doesn't qualify as there has to be set rules, right?
Correct. A family member can receive some subsidy for that. I don't believe it's as much as even a center, but they would have to apply through the state and receive a approval to basically be that in-home care provider of So, yeah.
In this meeting too with the other providers in town, did you explain them how that subsidy seems to shadow their prices as they go higher?
Yeah.
Do they understand
And
that?
I kind of talked to them about how you could raise rates without making a big stink and have parents, just do it on an annual basis, and how I did it. And because I went for the first probably 8 years of being open and I didn't raise my rates. And then I kind of got into a coaching group and they were like, you have to do that. Because childcare is a lot of competition people feel, because you always feel like, somebody's gonna have an edge on you, and it shouldn't be, because there's enough kids to go around. There's more kids than anybody needs. So there's not always a lot of sharing. So I joined a group that was a national group and met with people from all over the country, and then I was learning, oh, this is how they do things, this is how we can do this, and I was like, okay, you're right. And I mean, it dramatically changed my business to where, after a few more years, I was able to make the leap from the intro starter home to what you guys saw last week. And it's just people just need that confidence to be able to do that.
And on top of that too, the employers in town, I mean, I'm assuming they all have that program where the child care dollars are paid from pre-tax dollars.
Yeah.
They have all that available, or is
The
that?
like flex spending accounts.
Yeah.
I know some of them do. We were talking to American Eagle, and she said that they were really trying to push that with their employees, because some people don't really even understand how to use that benefit and how much it saves them. But that was one of the things we talked about that would be great benefit for their employees, is having, even if the employer matched some more money to go into that flex spending.
That's huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
And as you can imagine, from a cost standpoint, even a church-based daycare or a home-based daycare, they do not have the overhead that what she has here, and neither do they have provide the services that she does. So it's dramatic, something dramatically different than 90% of what's here at this point in time.
Well, it seems like to me, we've talked about workforce, we've talked about housing, and we really haven't talked about this as maybe the silent cog in the wheel that suddenly, now we know what our problem is. Paul, is that kind of your assessment? Are we not, we just didn't address this 2 years ago and now we need it?
That's correct.
I just pointed out that. Because we didn't know what we didn't know, and now we know what we know,
Well,
right?
it's become even, it was trending that way before COVID, now it's even worse since.
Well, that's a good point, yeah.
So that's why it's really exploded.
Well, and kind of how Paul had mentioned, with some closing, and I know when my kids were little, I was one who was unfortunate enough to have, maybe a week's notice of a daycare closing. And, you're in that scramble to try to figure out what you're going to do with your kids so you can keep working. So, I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Do you know roughly where that income level is to kind of qualify for that? Because I would assume the median income in Johnson County is significantly higher than Franklin County. And
Yeah, I don't.
okay,
Yeah, I don't. I know that they fill out their form online with the state to be able to do that, or I don't know if it's all the same. I know that they did raise the rate or raise the income level with COVID. It went up, so a lot more people qualified for benefits, but I don't think the benefit amount changed much.
I know this is an issue with the state as well, and trying to recruit employment and stuff. I was with the Lieutenant Governor's office a couple of weeks ago, and they said I don't know if you saw in Manhattan, Kansas, they just announced this new 1,000 employees, $90,000 enough salaries. And they said the biggest impediment for them was the daycare in Manhattan. So it's statewide. So you guys could get out ahead. I think we could get out ahead of the curve on this, and with Paul's direction, I think really do something special here in Ottawa.
Well, I reached out to the mayor of Gardner, Todd Winters up there, had a conversation with him about your facility. He had nothing but good things to say about you guys, not only during the construction process, but he had 2 children that went through there and praised you guys immensely. So
That's awesome to
that's
hear.
exciting to hear about that.
He wasn't mayor, he was a
He was not mayor,
councilman.
yeah, not mayor yet, but
But he was a
All
council,
Yep.
we're glad he's mayor now.
Yeah.
We're very happy. Yeah, so,
any other questions for Greg or Steve or even Marcia? Marcia, do you have anything else you want to add to it?
can I just say?
Absolutely.
I just want to let you know, it was important enough, this is important enough for Steve to fly in from Dallas today to be here at this meeting, because I think he really wanted to show you that not only is Ottawa important, but we want to be good corporate citizens as well with Ottawa, so.
Thank you for coming in from Fort Worth, right? It's the better Dallas, right? Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah,
they say?
That's
Yeah.
right, you got that right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We appreciate your time. Thank you. That'll move us on to our item 2, which is a resolution amending resolution number 1903-22, updating the name of company from Premier Auto of Ottawa LLC to Premier Real Estate of Ottawa LLC. And I believe Tyler is on Zoom with us. Hello, Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Tyler Ellsworth with Kutak Rock, the city's bond council. And Mayor, as you mentioned, this item really is as simple as the brief intro that's listed on the agenda sheet here, or the brief description of it. You all will recall that in early February, we completed the proceedings for the TIF and the other incentives for the new auto dealership on East 23rd Street. And the entity that we were dealing with at that time was Premier Automotive of Ottawa. And after we completed those proceedings in early February, we were notified by the company that they wanted to use a different entity for development of the new dealership and some of these documents. And so we worked through that with them, but realized that at some point we would need to come back to you to revise the resolution of intent for the industrial revenue bonds, simply to change the reference from the prior entity, Premier Automotive of Ottawa, to the new entity, Premier Real Estate of Ottawa. And really that's all that this amended resolution accomplishes, changing the reference to the name of the entity. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We're just requesting that at some point, the next meeting or the following meeting, that this be placed on your regular commission agenda for consideration.
I'm fine with moving it on.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's fairly simple, and I think you have consensus from the commission to move it. You want to put it on this Wednesday's agenda?
Yeah.
I think it's simple. Tyler, that's what we'll do. We'll just throw it on Wednesday's agenda and take care of it then.
Very good. I appreciate it.
Thank you for catching us up on time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tyler.
All right. Take care.
That'll move us on to item 3, Kansas Independent College Finance Authority Revenue Anticipation Notes with Tom Corley and Melissa, if we have any more questions. Hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm fine. How y'all doing?
Good, good.
I'll keep you on time if y'all just
Thank
go
you.
ahead and through.
It's not the first time we've seen you.
Yeah, I think we've been doing this for many, many years. And I think I just want to reiterate, this has no liability on the city at all. It's all associated with the university, and it's a formality that we have to go through because of the regulations. Does anybody have any questions regarding it?
What kind of timeline are you looking for, Tom?
I know they're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. I think as soon as if you put it on the agenda for Wednesday and it gets approved, I think the mayor signs off on it, and that's all that
So your
We need
request
it.
is Wednesday?
we could, please. And I believe that's what we
Mayor,
talked about.
we were gonna put it on for Wednesday. The public hearing is at 10 a.m. Our meeting will be held before that, so you just sign it after.
Okay.
After the public hearing will be held at 10 a.m. So we can do it the afternoon, but as long as you put it on the agenda for Wednesday, that would be great.
Commissioners, you okay with putting it on Wednesday's agenda? I think we're good with that.
Just one other question. How's the girls' flag football team doing? Didn't they win?
Won their second championship
Okay.
In a row.
in 2 years in a row,
Wow.
first
Yeah.
two that they've ever had, so it's great.
Yeah.
Just feel free to bring them along with you on Wednesdays.
I will try to if I can get them here. I know
Great.
softball was playing, unfortunately, I think they were losing at the time, and then baseball plays tonight in the first round, so
Exciting.
a lot going
A lot
on.
of
with
good
the
stuff.
Exciting time of the year.
It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Sounds good. That's what we'll do. We'll move it on to Wednesday's agenda.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you,
I'll see
Tom.
y'all Wednesday.
Thank you.
Tom.
That'll move us on to item 4, which is a recommendation to add 12 residential structures to the neighborhood revitalization program, and Director Hall will let us in on that.
Good afternoon. Some slides up there for you. So the committee, the NRP committee, which represents Franklin County, the school district, and the city of Ottawa, is recommending or requesting approval of 12 projects to be included in the neighborhood revitalization program. The NRP program means that the current owner and future owners will get a tax rebate for 5 years. In other words, it'll transfer to future owners is what I mean to say. So 7 of these are new residential houses, 4 are residential remodels or additions, and 1 is a commercial remodel of a Main Street location in downtown Ottawa. The total estimated value of all these projects collectively is over $1.25 million. Second slide, please. The locations of the projects are identified on this map. Next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna go through these kind of quickly, so if you want to ask a question, feel free to do that. This first project is a new 2-bed, 1-bath home, single-family residence with an estimated value of $105,000. That's the value of the improvement value. Next.
Is this on
Mike,
condemnation?
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say something. If you could go back to that slide, please. Sorry, that was one that we condemned
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it was tore down, was it by the owner or by the builder now? Do you know about who did that?
I don't know who
Okay.
demoed the house.
But it is demoed and it's already, I believe, reconstructed.
It's under
so-
construction
Yep,
right now.
Yep,
Yep.
it's,
That's an old photo.
Yep.
It's a before picture.
Go better from there.
Yeah. Next slide. This project is a new single-family home. Estimated value of the improvement, that's the incremental value, is $180,000. Next slide. This one is a new 2-bed, 1-bath home. Estimated value of the improvement is $105,000. Next slide. This project, where you see those bushes there in the slide, that's photograph provided. This is a new 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage home, single-family home.
I'm not putting them in between those bushes.
I don't
right?
think so.
mean,
I
it's
think-
up to the builder, I guess,
I think
right?
they're removing the bushes, but I'm not sure. Estimated value, $165,000, and that's the incremental value, that's the estimated improvement value. Next slide. This is a new 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, single-family home. Estimated value of the improvement is $165,000. Next. This is a new 3-bed, 2-bath, single-family residence. Estimated value of the improvement is $133,000. Next. This is another new 3-bed, 2-bath home, single-family residence. Estimated value of $133,000. So now we're down to the remodels. This involves remodeling bathroom, kitchen, various parts of the home. As you can see, estimated value of the improvement is pretty significant, $75,000.
So I have a question, Mike. Maybe you can't answer this, but why do the remodels only get 5 years? Is that in our regulations?
That is in the program. So when the city commission adopts the plan,
Right.
they adopt a program and it has the rules of the rebates. And what I'm not entirely clear on, I don't think the statutes are specific about what the rebates are, but they tend to, each city tends to adopt certain rebate values. I've seen that city to city. But it's part of the program that's adopted by the governing body, as I understand. Next. So this is a remodel, removing an existing garage, replacing with a new garage. Value of the improvement is $21,000. Next. This is a remodel of a single-family residence, various elements of the home are being remodeled. Estimated value of the improvement is $60,000. This is a remodel of a single-family residence, various elements of the home. Estimated value of the improvements $45,000. So this is the single commercial project. This project involves remodeling the building, adding 5 commercial offices. Estimated value of the improvement is $40,000. And those are all the projects. I think, as you can see, these represent a lot of new houses. And I would say they're relatively affordable. So I think that they meet a need. And I'll take any questions you have at this point.
Commissioners, any questions? It's always exciting to see that some of those are, replacing blighted or condemned properties. I did notice that was on 2 or 3 of those, so that was wonderful to see. It's good to see the investment that a lot of folks are making, not only in their houses, but in the community. I saw a lot of Van Night on there, and it's amazing how many houses that they're doing. And I mean, you drive around everywhere, and there's a slab they're putting in. So I once again publicly would like to say thank you to not only Van Night, but everybody else that's making that investment in our community.
And they're nice looking homes.
Absolutely.
They're nice, very livable looking homes.
Absolutely.
At an affordable range, relatively speaking. Thank you.
Commissioners, how would you like to move forward with this?
I'm fine with moving to Wednesday. No need to delay. That's my opinion.
Good.
Yep.
That's what we'll do. We'll move them on to Wednesday, Mike. Thank you.
And I just want to say too, I'll say it in the meeting, obviously, I'm the general contractor on one of these projects, but my compensation doesn't change regardless of if it's in the program or not in the program.
Thank you.
Ditto for his financing.
Yep, I'll say it too
Okay.
Wednesday, so.
Okay.
I might drive by one of them.
All right, that'll move us on to our continued review of our 2023 operating budget, and we're gonna start with Melanie. I think she has a little information to start us off with.
Is this a teaser?
Yes, I promise to keep this short. My part will be really short. It's up to the rest of them to decide how short their part is. But so today we're talking about special revenue funds. These are a little different than what you've heard so far. So we've talked about the general fund, we've talked about utility funds a little bit. So general fund is tax levy fund, utility funds are enterprise funds, they set rates. These special revenue funds, they have specific use for specific revenue that comes in and specific use for those funds. So each one of these works a little differently. They're not funds that you can intermingle the revenue and or the expenditures, anytime that they might work together. And I do have a couple of examples of that as we work through a few of these. It's because it's allowed by statute, or maybe that's the way that we're paying for a certain kind of debt. If you see transfers between them, it would be because it's something that statute allows to happen. So other than that, I just wanted to let you know that this is a little bit different. These are a little bit different than what we've looked at so far. So we'll kick it off, and each of the department heads have a few funds for themselves. I think we can just move through the list, and if you have questions, I'll just hang back here.
Thank you. On to you, Dennis. Come on up. We will start with special highway and streets.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
Are those just the ones you're responsible for? Because I feel like could be.
Are they the only ones? Is that what you're
Are
asking?
these, is this just Dennis's? I was like,
No.
okay.
So, special streets, and I'm gonna kind of walk through these. You all have read this. and hit the high points. And if you all have questions at that point in time, we can walk through that. Special streets, as you know, is funded by some of the gas taxes that we receive. Taxes go to the state, they come back. And then the Federal Funds Exchange Program, which is a reimburse program, a 90% reimbursement program that we have. These monies are spent on rehab of streets, chip and seal, mill and overlay, concrete, whatever it is. And then are involved with some of our sidewalk programs and some of our sidewalk improvements. The annual street maintenance plan is typically around $250,000. The sidewalk assistance program, if you don't know, we pay for the concrete, they take care of everything else. If a homeowner contacts us, we split those costs that way. Then the public sidewalks that we see as we kind of go through our processes on a regular basis, we try to hit as many of those in as many different ways as we can. We're looking for contractors. There's some money there to be spent, and we are looking for contractors. I throw that out there because we have a terrible time coming up with people to do some of that work. So that said, overall increase in this budget is $257,530, which includes that $250,000. So I will stand for questions at that point.
So it's an increase from last year, this month, 257,000, I should say, on top of the 250.
If you don't mind, I might add something in here about the way that the budgeted funds and cash balances work in here. So we do not annually budget for all of our reserves to be spent, but we do in some cases budget for some of them as a kind of a contingency or a reserve line item as a just in case. And we do that so that you don't have to come back and do multiple budget amendments throughout the year, and especially in something like the special highway fund. So if you get into a project and you're like, hey, it would make more sense financially to expand that project, and maybe we want to bid $350,000 or $400,000 or a project comes up that you didn't anticipate, having that extra reserve in there does help you to get over that hurdle. It does reduce your cash balance, but the cash in this fund stays in this fund. So whatever you use, it comes away from that cash balance, but whatever you don't use rolls over to the next year to be used in the next year. So the funds do stay within the fund. In this case, we did add the $250,000 reserve, not to be confused with the $250,000 we did budget for the actual road improvements or street improvements. But even above that, it would still leave you in our estimate about $325,000 left in the fund after that additional. And then if we don't use those dollars, those just roll over to the beginning of the next year, and that's what we'll use to help budget for 2024.
So we're not spending $257,000, it's gonna be in the budget just.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's the other thing, is just because you budget for it doesn't mean it's going to be an expenditure. We do it, it happens, like I said, in some other funds where we put it in there, but when you see an estimate column, so say for example, the 22 estimate column, if we have budgeted a reserve in there, you would see in my estimate that we're not estimating that we're going to use it, so it becomes part of the available money at the bottom of that column and would roll over to the top. This fund was not an example of that where we budgeted extra last year, but there are a few of them where you'll see that, where there might have been a budget, but then I don't show that we're going to expend that in 22, so it becomes part of the fund balance.
Okay.
So what would we describe as an unanticipated improvement project? I mean, I know it's kind of a vague question because it's unanticipated. We don't know what it is,
It
but
is a
I
really
mean,
big
what's something that
question,
may have came up? What's
you know,
something that may have came up recently in the last?
let's just talk about a project that's going on right now. Let's talk about the sidewalk project that's going along 68 highway. Let's just say that we got down to where the Prairie Spirit Trail comes across, and we all of a sudden thought, shoot, we didn't do anything for a crosswalk or anything to take care of pedestrians here. That would be an unanticipated cost. We would need to fix that right then. We don't wait till the next year because they're already using it. You know, so anything like that we might come across, I think would be what we're talking about at that point in time.
Commissioners, any other questions on special highway fund?
I think this is one of those funds that individuals don't necessarily realize is so important, but they sure realize it when their streets get.
Well, absolutely, you know, and being able to, you know, that's a fair chunk of money that we're spending on streets every year, and we really try to expend the most of that at that, you know, as we can. So, you know, this year, we're still looking a little bit, to be quite honest. You know, we had, as you know, our bids came in a little lower than anticipated. We got a little money hanging out there that we may try to use yet. So yeah, we're still looking at things, and we have some things as the contractor comes in. You know, sometimes it really just works out that, you know, we go to the contractor and say, hey, you know, you're getting close to done, but, you know, we got here, here, and here that we'd like to, you know, to get a bid on while you're still here in town, so they don't have to deploy again, and so we save a little money.
And the revenues stay pretty steady in this. This is not a tax-supported fund. This is from the gasoline tax. And the gasoline tax is not indexed to inflation, so there is no windfall here for local governments or county governments to get it. It really is dependent upon you all taking summer trips and driving all over and buying gas. And it doesn't matter where you buy gas.
In the state of Kansas.
There's a state formula on all this, on how it gets given out to you.
But is a percent of the gallon purchase?
No, there's it's a set, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about that, you know, you would expect with what we're paying for gas right now that maybe this fund would come up, but it actually offsets because people just don't buy as much, you know, so as we look at it, or anticipate it would be about the same for next year.
Commissioners, any other questions on special highways or streets? Okay, let's move on to special parks.
All right, special parks. The special parks budget receives 1/3 of the liquor drink tax. They're again collected by the state of Kansas and back to the city. Lots of donations, grant revenue, the water sewer warranty, service line revenues, all of those go into this fund. Primarily, these are used by the Play Task Force in support of the Play Task Force for any development, you know, anything that we do related to parks or the swimming pool or any of those kinds of things. The proposed 2023 budget, pretty consistent really with what we've seen in the past. And then there's an additional $130,000, which is kind of the same thing that we talked about with the streets. You know, that is kind of a reserve that would give us some flexibility to do some things if we saw that they came about and we needed to do them. So that in a nutshell is what we're talking about here.
And this is funded through alcohol intake. There's a tax on every drink or every liquor that you buy. And a third, like Dennis said, a third of it goes into this fund, a third of it goes into special alcohol, which a lot of that, most of that, Adam uses with some school programs out there. And a third of it goes into general fund. And I don't think, did you mention that swimming pool supplies and some swimming pool maintenance comes out of here?
Yes. Yes, I did actually.
Just as clarification, just if anybody's watching, citizens who may take part in the water sewer warranty service line program, not all of that revenue comes to us. Some of it is a small portion of it is brought to us, but that whole.
That's a very good point, you know.
And we negotiated that up front. We could have, there were a couple of things we could have done, but at the time, we needed funding for improvements to our parks, and it's really a pretty substantial part
other cities in Kansas are actually doing
Yes.
the same
Yeah,
thing.
and overall, in
And
the
it's a good
scheme of things, this is a relatively small budget. But we, quite honestly, get quite a bit done with it over a period of time. You know, these are funds that we are able to do some pretty good things with. Bottle fillers, you know, those kinds of things along the trail.
People visually see it's a quality of life issue.
Yeah, replacing equipment, you know, some of those kinds of things that we talk about on a regular basis. These are the funds that we get some of those done with.
So in the 2022 estimate, it shows $48,000 for sale of property. Is that,
That's what we're hoping you get out of Lakeside.
so hopefully, you know, that number might be a little bit bigger.
Yes.
Okay,
We hope we under
Which I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a really good point, is that that's where this,
right, it goes into this budget, like we've mentioned
Sale
multiple
of-
You
times.
decided to sell any more lots, that's just more money. So I think that's important for the public to know that you have dedicated that money to go back into the special parks.
39301 is grants, and we've had grants the last 3 years, but I don't see any on 2023. Do you know of any we've applied for that might be coming down the pipe?
I do not, Commissioner. We have applied for a couple. Our grant process is a little different right now. We have not heard it back on the couple that we've applied for. We are working through developing our talents as grant writers. And so while we've submitted a couple of things, I am cautious to say that we will receive those grants at this point in time.
it also doesn't hurt that, well, I think it does hurt us that we've not been to DC and had a conversation with some of our larger grantors.
Well, I mean,
And had a,
2020 was $80,000 in
Yeah.
grants. I mean, I know it's significantly less in 2021, but anything helps, so, I mean.
And we're having conversations on an ongoing basis about how we accomplish those things. Director Landis, our city clerk, are both somewhat versed in writing grants. Myself, and that I am not versed in writing grants, but at the same point in time, I have given it a shot along with Lisa upstairs, and DJ's been involved in some of that. We're learning, and we'll accomplish some things over a period of time, and see where it goes.
And I might also say that part of those grants that are still underway we're tidying up now and we're finishing up, they're not located in this fund. So we're finishing up the Trails Grant and the Sunflower Grant, I believe is the name of it. The piece that was, I believe that there was a small portion that was like maybe 1/4 of the expense for the senior agility course. Should we move in that direction? And then the Trails Grant, which I don't remember all the details for that. They're actually located in a grant fund. We have that set aside separately so that we can track that revenue and expense, and so that we can report better on it, as opposed to getting it mixed into a budgeted fund where you might see, you know, ups and downs that really wouldn't fit within that budgeting process. So some of those previous grants might have been recorded in here. We are doing them a little differently now. So we don't, he's correct that we don't have any new upcoming monies yet a flag to come in, but we are still in the process of finishing up these last two.
On the fees on the revenues, is that for renting in Forest Park, renting different buildings and different stuff like that? Is that where those fees?
Oh, no, those are actually park fees, and I didn't label them park fees because I should. Actually, it would probably be a little bit easier. So whenever we have a building permit and you pay the $300 park fee, it comes into this fund. And that is for the developments where the developer is not going to include a park in their development, and they're required to pay the $300 park fee as part of each lot that they build on. And so that revenue comes into here. Now, what we just recently talked about, the way that this has been split up in the past is depending on what area of town that development is happening in, those park fees are coming into these 3 different line items, and the city has been split up into basically quadrants to say if the park fee came in from this section of town, it's going to go towards park improvements in that section of town. Now, that is probably a really great way to have structured it at one point. We don't know if that's the best way to structure it now. It probably depends on how many lots are sitting out there open right now, ready for development, and whether or not they'll actually produce enough to make improvements right away in any one of those quadrants. And so we may want to do some work about in talking about combining those funds and then mapping out our efforts as part of a park improvement plan.
Yeah, we've done a good job of spreading our parks out, and then we've got a lot of really nice parks, you know, for a city, you know, our size. And they're spread out to where they're convenient for people to use. And so, yeah, down the road, maintenance is gonna have to take place. Those were all built at different times, so that money in specific quadrants probably doesn't make quite as much sense.
And we have some park equipment that's beyond its useful life, and that means safe life also.
Yeah.
And then the difference on this, beyond the revenues, comes from the general fund, I guess, to fund these expenditures. I mean, of course, like I'm showing here, we're budgeting total expenditures to like $200,000, 199, and our revenues are 55.
In this fund, the difference is that there's a little bit more budgeted in the contractual services. We budget the same in the parks. We did start budgeting for that line that says recreational improvement, that is pool repairs. Okay. And so we hadn't budgeted for that in the past, and so I just put 20,000 in there, not because I expect us or want us to have those types of improvements that have to happen again, or it's not improvements, they're repairs that had to happen in order to open the facility last year. But we just started putting some dollars in that line item. Now, again, just in this fund, especially any of these special revenue funds, just because it lives in the line item in the budget does not mean it is either programmed to be spent or has to be spent. It may not even be planned. It's just there as a, in case you need to spend it, approach.
And the budget doesn't zero out.
The budget doesn't zero out, right? So there's still, even after you give that budget authority, there's still a dollar amount in there that's going to roll over to the next year anyway. And that parks improvement line item, that when our previous director was here in community development, managed the special parks fund. And those dollars were pretty much programmed out for each of the upcoming years. And I don't know that we have that much of a structured plan at this point. We do know there's some things that will happen, but the making sure that the budgeted dollars are there gives them the opportunity to pull that plan together and or make those improvements as they become a priority.
But part of it is also required to be a Place City USA. I mean, we have to show that there's going to be this growth and this is going to be what we're going to do to maintain our play spaces.
Thank you, that's a really great point.
Yeah, but I think it goes back to what we just talked about. We have the parks, and we've developed that. Now we need to think amenities. We need to make sure that they're taken care of and provide the amenities that maybe we didn't do it initially. And so that's where that money's kind of designated, where it comes into play.
Commissioners, any other questions on special parks?
I think we should have 3 more hours about special
All right,
parks,
let's
so
do
we
it.
can be here
Let's
and
do
come
it.
in.
I did bring snacks this week, so.
I did.
Decided
I know. Hey, wait, hey, whoa, I won for everybody.
After last week, I was ready.
That'll move us on to the airport.
The airport, just kind of wholesale changes from what we've seen in the past. The FBO, right at this point in time, seems to be working very well. And that changes the whole structure of the budget at that point in time. So what you're seeing here is a significant reduction in the budget, simply because of the difference in the things the city does compared to what the FBO does at that point in time. I'm not gonna walk through all those, you can see those. If you got questions, we'll answer.
I might make one point here. As a result of that, there is less expenditures, but there also are less revenues, right? So it's pretty much a balancing it's pretty much balanced, even, like it was in the past. But it does actually require us to transfer less from the general fund to maintain. And so I did show a reduced transfer to the airport and from the 57,000 to the 35,000. If that's something that we want to move back up to that $57,000 number, I can do that. But we didn't see any future large improvements that we needed to start planning for or reserving money aside for, other than some of those big projects. Those are handled in a different fund with the FAA. Those things aren't handled in here. That revenue doesn't come into this fund. Those large expenditures don't get paid from this fund.
So if we're prudent and we do that, how does that affect us under the new budget law if next year we decide we need that money and have to bring it up?
It's a transfer that you're budgeting in the general fund, so you'll just need to increase the transfer in the general fund back to this fund. We could leave it there, but there's no restrictions on this. This is not a tax levy fund. It's just the amount that's in your general fund.
I understand that, but, okay.
All comes out in the wash.
Yes, yeah.
It's a weird little way we do this. I don't quite understand why we do it that way. It ought to likely just be in the general fund.
I think you're right. And so the whole idea was that eventually it would become a self-sufficient fund and it wouldn't need that transfer. At this rate, it's never going to be that. It just doesn't have the volume of revenue coming in there. Now, could it at some point with an expansion and some additional hangars and some, the expanded runways and some other big things and yes, but in the very immediate future, no. So for right now, we'll just leave it there with the standard transfer. Moving it back to the general fund would probably be more trouble than it's worth at this point, accounting wise. I'm happy to do it if you direct me to. But for right now, it's basically just trying to get, make sure that it's fully funded and that we have something in there to be able to make those improvements. If you look at the bottom of 23, I'm still anticipating that there's still going to be 233,000 left over in here in this as a fund balance. That's a very healthy fund balance for something that has less revenue and expense in it now than it did, but also in the chance that you at some future point decide to revert back to a manager form of operations instead of an FBO, then you would want to make sure you had that balance ability in there so that you didn't have to make a larger transfer from your general fund to fund it.
And as far as our improvements we got there, we can't get ahead of the FAA otherwise we don't get the funding that we get from them, which they can 90%, I think, of that. And also the capital improvement plan we have with, was it Osh or Besh or who's that?
Benish.
There we go. Thank you. And that for us. Also on the rental income, I want to make sure I understand. So the rental income is the T hangars and the other rents would be the farm leases?
Yes, and we retained 100% of the farm leases, but we have a split with the FBO, 90% on some of the hangars, 10% on some of the others.
Do we split the farm income with them or
We don't, we keep 100% of the farm income.
Okay, this looks like our farm income went down about half from 21 to 22.
I'm sorry, so 21 had some catch-up payments in it. If you look at if you were to average out 20 and 21, you'll see that there was some crossover between the years. So this is an average of what we rent now, yes. And that amount will be based on our contracts we have, sorry.
I appreciate what you're talking about. I mean, and I certainly hope that at some point the airport is able to sustain itself. I think if you watch the news, there's going to be an announcement tomorrow on some stuff that's going on closer to the metro or in the metro that involves their airport. So we certainly would like something like that to happen here. And so that may happen at some point.
Absolutely. And I think if we keep it structured this way, we'll be in a good position to move in that direction should we need to.
And keep in mind, this fund, we don't build this fund to do major projects. You know, there's money that comes in from the FAA, and then just for the commission's information, we haven't been here yet, but might as well put it out there. We typically receive about little over $150,000 a year from the FAA, and Commissioner Skidmore, I think, has already heard this. But as we understand it, for the next 5 years, that will double. So over the next 5 years, we're gonna see that $1.5 million, something of that nature. And as we begin to look at that kind of money, then we can look at those revenue producing things that may get us to what Director Landis is talking about and be, self-sustaining. The demand is out there. T-hangars, we've got a list of probably 30 people that would put planes in hangars right now if we had the hangar space. And it's at a premium, and it's a great time, to be an airport, quite honestly, so. And we'll have Brad from Benish come in and talk at some point. It's like every other thing coming out of the federal government right now. We don't know all of the I's and T's and how they get dotted and crossed related to that money and how it will be spent. But nonetheless, the belief is that money is going to be there, so.
Commissioners, any other questions on the airport? I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. That'll move us on to special alcohol with Chief Weingartner. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I don't need to say anything. Dennis and Richard already took care of it, so I've caught you up on time.
Yes, there you go.
The department currently has 3 DARE instructors who provide DARE instruction to USD 290 and Sacred Heart 5th graders. That culmination ends with graduation and then our annual DARE camp that the Ottawa Police Foundation funds fully for that. So like it was previously explained, the special alcohol is a third of the tax collected off alcohol and liquor drinks in the city of Ottawa. And we use those currently to offset a portion of the salary paid to the DARE instructors. Over time, we'd like to look at maybe doing some things differently with that, but certainly because of just a lot of other things going on that didn't make this a higher priority, Melanie and I talked about it and decided over the next few years, we'd like to talk and just see if we could come back to you with maybe something a little bit better to do with that than just pay salary. Happy to answer any questions.
If there's any questions?
As a parent of a 5th grader, she's very excited about this fund, so she's excited for DARE camp. So
We're excited to have it
appreciate
too. We're ready.
Please give our best to your graduates.
Thank you.
Cheaters.
I will.
You had a big weekend.
It was a big weekend.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That'll move us on to risk management with Michelle Watt. Hello, Michelle.
Hi there, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Risk Management Fund receives transfers from general and enterprise funds. The expenditures that come out of this fund are for to provide a safe and healthy working environment for our city employees, to pay for property and casualty coverages, workers' compensation, and there's a risk assessment, and to pay for a portion of the salaries of the HR staff members. We ask concurrence, the City Commission concurrence for the proposed budget for 2023. We did have an increase, as we typically have in the past every year, of the 2022 budget. The proposed budget is an increase of $157,095. $71,940 of that is directly related to our in property and casualty renewal increases. For 2023 hub, our property and casualty broker recommended that we budget for a 10% increase overall across all policies. And again, we don't know what the market will look like in 23. We renew, our renewal is 4/1 as opposed to the policy year of 1/1. And so we typically will not know what our amounts are going to be until the latter part of March. So it's can be challenging. We do know, the one change that happened this year, when we wrapped up the renewal, HUD found out that Intact Insurance, which is formerly One Beacon, decided in 2023 they didn't want to provide coverage for government sector clients. They're getting out of that industry. And because of that, luckily, we went to market this year and they got quotes from Travelers, who we only have currently. Before that, we only had one policy. We had our bond coverage through Travelers. And so what we decided to do was go ahead and switch now for the 2022 renewal, and rather than waiting. And so that's what we did. And the overall increase was an average of 5.75%. And we had some increases for some policies and decreases for others. And what we decided to do, we added, we have cyber coverage. We added that policy a number of years ago, which I think is very important nowadays. We bumped that up. We bumped that up to $2 million because of what we're seeing happen to local governments and other entities. And we also added a general liability umbrella policy of $1 million, which further protects the city if, let's say, there's a claim, and it will provide sizable judgments for damages. It's additional coverage. So I know Richard had at another city that he worked for, he had something like that in place, and we decided this would be something we need as an organization. We do know that by switching to the new to Travelers, that we had to increase deductibles across the board. Some of the one notable one was the wind hail with Intact. The deductible was $25,000, and which, according to our brokers, is an anomaly nowadays. And so that with Travelers is $250,000. What else?
What was the 250,000 again?
Wind hail.
That's the
And
premium.
It's like a per occurrence,
deductible?
so it's a deductible.
Deductible from 25,000 to 250.
$250,000. And there's not, what we had is not offered with Travelers at all.
It's a large increase.
It is. And so some of our other deductibles across the board went from 5,000 to 10,000 for some of our other policies. But that was a noteworthy one I wanted to share with you.
On our flood insurance, the deductible will also go up that much, or how?
The flood policies, we remained with the same carriers. So for the NFIP and the excess flood, same carrier. We did have a reduction of $6,800, which I was happy to see.
Congratulations. It's a reduction.
It's still more than I would like to budget for, but. The renewal with Intact for most of to include some of our other carriers, the renewal would have been about almost $660,000, and with switching to Travelers, overall it was about $615,000, the difference for all of the policies, and that just includes property and casualty policies. Let's see. We took some slight increases on some of our other line items, like KMU, group training. They took a slight increase for 2023. And I also bumped up the judgment and claims line items, by 15,000 for next year. In 2021, we actually had a lot of claims expense, so, and I'll stand for any questions, I'm not sure.
On the personnel services, the health insurance,
Yes,
is that estimate of 16,000 budget for next year of 42 the change with adding the position? Or filling the position, I should say, upstairs?
yes.
On health insurance and personal services up above.
Tell me about the line item special funds under capital expense.
Okay, so we added that line item a number of years ago in the event that our property and casualty renewals were beyond what we thought they were going to be. It's there, we aren't going to use it unless we need it for property and casualty renewal coverage. Is that, you want to add to that?
This would be an opportunity for us to clean up our line items and our chart of accounts, where that would probably move down to what, a reserve line item or a contingency line item. But the point or the purpose of it is still the same.
And our rates are somewhat determined by what we do, but they're generally determined by what happens globally.
Right. We did, and along that line, we did have a number of auto claims last year, some significant ones. One of the drivers was not insured, so that also factors into it, utilization claims, the number of claims that we get.
On the workers' compensation one, do we have to do any like attestation to say that we do certain things to keep employees safe? I was just thinking
Yes.
the box that we're doing for public works to prove that we are
Yes.
doing those things to keep premiums kind of in line.
Sure. We're with CARET, Kansas Eastern Region Insurance Trust, and it is a workers' compensation pool that's comprised of 18 different entities, cities, some local government, Johnson County Parks and Rec, even Winfield's in it. We have what is called a CARET scorecard that we have to comply with, that covers all facets of safety and compliance and training, wellness. And we have met that every year for the last 7 years. If we do everything on the scorecard, we get a 5% discount on our coverage. And
We also do a lot of training, Commissioner, training and safety, because it also helps us in some other areas too, the lower cost. Hospitalizations, things like that.
so that relationship we have with Kansas Municipal Utilities, we have, when Brian Meek came out and presented that award to us a couple weeks ago, he is in a sense, our safety officer. So he's out here 2 days a month. He does training on one day. In between, he does job or department specific training that's requested in between. He does audits. He chairs our safety meeting, our safety council meetings, and we've expanded the program over the last 7 years, where we now have what is called KMU Academy, where employees each year can go in and watch the required training, like bloodborne pathogens or harassment training, fire safety, things of that nature. And we were like I believe their first city to be able to use this program. But we're very happy with KMU.
So in 2021, and I know that you talked about this earlier, about your cyber liability insurance, and we went from that budget more than doubled in 1 year, but coverage doubled. In fact, more than doubled since 2020. I mean, like
Right.
multiple factors. But we were gonna see a rate increase anyway of $1 million for the $1 million policy, and we ended up with a $2 million policy now, correct?
So,
Is that what you had referenced earlier, I believe? It said we increased our cyber coverage from 1 million to 2 million.
right,
And it went from
it was,
7,800 to 3.
yeah, I budgeted that, and it went to 24,698
Okay.
is what it ended up being for this calendar year.
And you anticipate it, I mean, nothing goes down in the insurance world. You anticipate it to go up too. But
I would
certainly,
assume
yeah.
so. There are more things that we will be required to do as an organization, and I've been working with Paul directly on enhancing what we have in place and more training and written programs and things of that nature that we're gonna be working on, if that answers your question.
It does.
Commissioners, any other questions for Michelle on risk management budget?
I'm not crying, I got allergies.
Okay.
He's really into this budget.
I'll tell you.
You were excited about the 1 million to 2 million or not? Tell me about
It's his favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Do you need a pretzel?
I need more than that, I think. Go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
That'll move us on to our auditorium budget with Tiffany.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
How are you guys? Excellent, great. Well, the OMA budget is property tax supported, but it also receives additional revenues through vehicle tax, ticket sales, building rentals, concession sales, donations. The proposed budget for next year, for 2023, is based on those estimated revenues. So just a couple of things to really talk about. A lot of things stayed the same, but we did have some increases, and the major one is in regards to the events that we host. As everybody knows, we had a sold-out show earlier this year, and that was a lot of fun, and we'd like to do that again. But we were able to host that show due to a grant that we had received that gave us more money to spend on talent. And we've learned, if we spend just a little bit more on talent, it intrigues the patrons more. So the cost of that show that we hosted earlier this year that sold out is actually the entire amount that we have budgeted in the year past to spend on talent fees. So we are requesting an increase of that. Associated with that increase of presenting those more expensive shows, which we saw with this show, was that we needed to increase our budget for credit card processing, mailing out tickets, all of which those fees we pass to the patrons. So you'll see that also reflected in our revenues. The other increase that has really, that's big in this budget also, is that we've just promoted our part-time sound and light tech to a full-time technical coordinator position, and so you'll see some increases reflected to personnel benefits, health insurance and such. So we do hope that we will present 3 large shows next year, take the revenues from the first show and roll them into the second. We know that that's not a guaranteed thing, so we're asking for this proposal of this budget to give us that budget authority to be able to do so, knowing that, if the cash is not there, obviously we cannot spend $20,000 on every show. But it does give us the opportunity to start that role to continue to build for years to come. We've also included a reserve for future improvement, so that when we need to replace the boiler in a few years, or we want to look at replacing our old yellow and orange seats and put them in with some nice new comfortable seats with cup holders, that we would plan for that and have those funds available. And I am open for questions on this.
You get close to being revenue neutral. That's always a good thing to see.
Tiffany, I'm assuming the ticket sales for 2020 and 21 were down just because of COVID. Do you have any idea what they were
They
averaging?
were terrible.
Even less than that?
They were bad. I
Okay.
mean, we did not hit our sale, what we budgeted for those years. In 2020, we only had, we'd had one of our first show in February, and then of course, we didn't really present any other shows except for, we did a few outdoor concerts, which it's really hard to sell tickets to an outdoor show in a downtown area because people can just, and we found that people sat across the street and listened to the music instead of coming into the parking lot. And really in 2021, we didn't start opening the auditorium back for shows and such until after April. And so we did present a few ticket sales for concerts just all across the industry during that time were terrible. This year, though, we're already way over what we budgeted for. So.
Well, and the reason I bring that up is because, I mean, you talk about bringing some talent in there, and I mean, it's 7 times what had been averaging, what your estimate is for 2022, and almost 10 times what your estimate is for 2023. So certainly bringing some talent in could help with trying to get revenue neutral, as Commissioner Skidmore suggested.
Absolutely.
Sale of more junk equipment.
Yeah.
We still have some junk equipment to get rid of.
Well, I'm gonna say, I think we can all match that, the $10 that's estimated, I think we can all match that. We can double that.
We may have some light
Yeah.
fixtures.
We
as
do have
well.
some light fixtures to sell, for sure. Purple wave, here we come.
Commissioners, any other questions for Tiffany on the auditorium budget? Thank you.
Thank you.
Move us on to economic development with Melanie Landis and our city manager.
All right, thanks. Okay, I'm doing this one. So this fund is a special revenue fund, but it is it's in place for us to be able to administer development incentives and be able to contribute towards development incentives if we need to. Years prior to what you even see on here, there was a tremendous effort to build this fund so it was available for those types of incentives that might be available to keep development coming to Ottawa. And now we don't necessarily have a lot of large revenue streams coming into here, so really it's maintenance type items. Whenever you have an incentive sitting out there, there's an annual fee for those exemptions each year, and there is one stream of tower rent that comes into here. Otherwise, there's really not a lot of revenue stream that comes in here. We budget expenditures based on what we think is going to happen. We absolutely have no idea what is going to come our way over the next 18 months. And so we're really just trying to give you the opportunity to use these funds should you find it necessary to use them. Of course, all of those incentives come through you and you'll see those anyway. So we've structured this in a way that would give you the opportunity to use those funds should you find that to be necessary. I can answer any questions you might have.
It appears as though there's a large bump, or maybe there's not a large bump. There is a standard $150,000 under other contractual services. Can you tell me about what belongs in that line item? 558. It looks like we had $150,000 budgeted this year, but we projected 55, but we're again budgeting 150,000.
To be honest, I'm gonna have to go back and look and see what those past 2 years were. I'm not exactly sure what came out of those. I do know that part of the projected for this year is the amount that we paid to FCDC as part of the collection of pilot payments over the last several years. And you'll see the corresponding expenditure under that refunds line item. So we had some pilot payments expire at the end of the year. And so we paid out the portion of that which we were under agreement with FCDC to do so. And then also we had a refund back to the company that we collected those pilots from for prior years. So those are 2 of the expenditures. I'm happy to look into that because I don't
And
have
you're
that detail
referring to the
available.
ATC pilot,
Yes.
which I think the first time I was mayor, we put on, and so it sunsetted?
Yes.
Yes,
It's done?
it's
Okay.
over, it's done. And the other one probably has at the most, 2 years,
Who else had us?
1 year.
1 year.
As a pilot?
And what those were was a special agreement when Mr. Seymour was still here, that we gave, anyway, it's complicated. But what it was intended to do was to be a pass-through the FCDC to provide them with some extra funds for projects.
And now that I'm thinking about it, those other contractual services could very well likely be the fees that we paid out for the outside consultants that did the work for any of the incentives that came in, and you'll see the deposited money from those applicants also shows up in the revenue. And then we would have expended those funds out of there, so this just gives you the authority to spend that. I will certainly go back and double check that, but I think that's what would come out of there.
Commissioners, any other questions for Ms. Landis on our economic development? All right, let's move on to debt service.
All right. This is one of those funds that has a lot of movement and also doesn't have a lot of activity, if that makes any sense at all. We have a lot of transfers that come into here and we do make our debt payments out of here. The way that we handle this fund is it is a property tax supported fund. However, there's very minimal debt payments made out of here that are actually property tax supported. So the additional expenditures that you see in your principal and interest are supported by transfers from the other funds for which that debt was for. So for sewer expenditures, wastewater expenditures, that transfer is coming in from the wastewater fund. We budget for it as a transfer out of that fund. It comes into this fund. This is all based on how statute is set up for the debt service fund to work. From the electric fund, the water fund, from special streets, from the special sales tax, stormwater, and so on. So the way that we balance that out is what's needed to fund those property tax supported debt. And right now we do have just 4 issues that are funded directly from property taxes that don't have an incoming revenue or transfer to support those. And so when we structure this debt service fund for the budget, we want to give the flexibility of refunding opportunities in the future. So if you refund, you want to make sure that you've got enough money built into your expenditures to be able to do that. And then because you don't know what those refunding opportunities are going to be or what those interest rates are going to look like. So we may have a savings in here by doing a refunding, and you'll see less of a transfer. For example, last year we did a refunding that was going to save us interest overall. The two projects that we did, the 2 bond issues, were specifically related to the electric fund. So the electric fund is going to transfer less money, or you're going to see less of an expenditure related to those 2 bond issues. And I can't tell you, that doesn't actually reflect that, but we do have a built out schedule that shows exactly what those payments need to be. And the payments from year to year can fluctuate for any one of those bond issues. What we're working on getting to you, we can start including in our monthly report, is a clean, easy to read summary of all the debt issuances and what the remaining balances are, what the maturity years are, so that you can see
all that, and the interest rate as well, and all those.
Yes, and we have one constructed. It's just not as clean and friendly to read as I would like for it to be, but our goal is to get that out to you before the end of this month. Do you have questions on how this is budgeted? And this fund, along with the auditorium fund that you just heard about, these amounts for revenues and for the ending balances, they will change because it's all going to be dependent upon that assessed valuation that we get reported to us on June 15th. And then also the motor vehicle estimates come out from the county a little bit later. We didn't have those available to us quite yet. So everything will change, bottom line for both of those, but these are based on estimates for you to just get a good first look at.
And when you do your budget, Melanie will update this, your statement of indebtedness. That shows you all the debt you have outstanding, when and what interest rate you're paying and everything. Just have to have that.
Do you know on the amounts dropping on the taxes, the ad valorem property taxes? With that amount dropping from 2020, 2021, it's just kind of consistently dropped? That's
So-
on 301.
Okay, so that is largely dependent on the mill levy, the mill rate that we assign to this fund. And that is dependent upon how much money you need to maintain this fund. So if your property tax supported projects, if we're going to have more debt for those, then the amount that you need goes up. And if you have less, then it goes down. But when you see the calculation, when we pull all four of those tax levy funds together, you're gonna see how that's gonna balance out. And again, it'll depend largely upon the assessed valuation. So once we plug all of that in, this could change. It could go up or down based on your need. Right now, the way that I did this, I just did a flat 5% increase over the previous year. So, and we do work to balance each one of those funds to make sure that we keep our mill rate fairly level and or in the case of the last couple of years, decreasing. So that will change, and we can come back and talk about those revenue lines once we get that in. It'll probably make a lot more sense when you see those all together.
Commissioners, any other questions on debt service fund?
Maybe a simple answer to this, but I'm just looking at all of our total debt payments, debt service payments, but up above the paragraph, it talks about how much principal and interest, and they don't add up. Maybe there's a simple explanation for that, but wouldn't it be closer to 3.9 million at the bottom total? If 3.3 million up here and 566,000 interest.
I'm sorry.
Let's see, on this page here, the main page. I'm seeing that where the expenditures from the fund are related to general obligation fund debt payments, and it says principal of 3.3 million, interest of 566,000. So if I'm adding those two up, the total principal and interest would be about 3.9 million.
Which is reflected in the detail here, 3.99, 3.887.
Well, here it just says 3.5 million on the 2000.
Oh, and the request on the transfers.
Yeah,
Those are just
yeah.
those are just transfers from the other funds.
Yeah, that's not debt.
That's not the debt service payments.
No, those are the money that are going to come in from the other funds to cover their debt service payments.
The difference would.
The difference is funded by property taxes. Yep, and that's that 300 and some thousand at the top, which again will fluctuate slightly based on, yes, assessed value.
And the melody we agreed to, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
It got close to 50. I know we were 49.9. It's come down to about 45 maybe now, I think, in the levy, something like that. So
I don't have that in front of me. I'm
that's
sorry.
what I think I remember.
Should did.
So just didn't want to go over 50. 49.99.
Below 50.
Very close to that. We just couldn't do it.
I'll tell you here in a minute.
So good thing I don't have with me.
All right, your mill levy for 2022 was 45.9.
Way better.
Yeah.
And that was less than the prior 2 years, so we have been able to lower that for the past 2 years.
And in 2020, you were 48.4, 2021, 46.7.
I have it burned in my mind when Commissioner Jorgensen would just about blow his top, and you would think even consider saying the 50. I know, I don't think any of us wanted to say it, but boy, loved it. Yeah. Nobody wants to do that.
I have to work out with you 3 times.
I know, I'm sorry.
Still, any other questions on the debt service fund? All right, let's move on to the special tax, sales tax.
Okay. These next two are both related to special sales tax rates that we have, or special sales tax in our city, and they are special purpose. So this one related to the wastewater improvements is a 0.1% sales tax, and it is collected and deposited into this fund and then used specifically to pay against the debt related to wastewater improvements. So really it is not doing, this fund doesn't do a whole lot except for just make the transfer to the debt service fund, collects the sales tax, makes the transfer to the debt service fund. We have to show this as a budgeted fund because it is a sales tax. We do want to be transparent and show how much is coming into there for these purposes. Now, you will see in the revenue stream that we do bring in a transfer from the wastewater fund. And when we scheduled this debt, these debt schedules, the payments are actually more than the sales tax supports. And so the wastewater fund basically, fills in the gap there. So we transfer from the wastewater fund to this fund, and then we make the full debt transfer to the debt service fund. To make sure that we're showing that it doesn't actually fully support itself, or fully support the debt payments. But then also, we know that at some future point, we're going to, that sales tax does sunset in 2024. There are future debt payments that have to be made beyond that. So we do have to have a plan in place as to how those are going to get paid. So we do have a built out forecast for this fund for the next 5 years, so we can see what that's going to look like. At the end of the year, the money that comes in here, that transfer from wastewater, is budgeted and relatively close to the amount of surcharge dollars that are brought into the wastewater fund. Now, this $550,000 that's budgeted, or the $560,000, is actually probably slightly more than what we'll bring in revenue for that surcharge. But that surcharge was in place to as an additional support for paying the debt for the wastewater improvements. So it was the sales tax and a surcharge. And so that debt, I believe, is pays off in 2033. Oh, one of the issues pays off in 2024, and then there's an additional issue that pays off in 2033. Do you have questions? Basically, it's a pass-through account, but also accounting for the special sales tax.
Commissioners, any questions on this budget? We'll move on to the proximity parking.
All right, so Proximity Park is also a special sales tax. We do have a 0.5-cent sales tax specifically related to Proximity Park and for the improvements and or debt related to those improvements for the creation of and any of the additional infrastructure needed for Proximity Park. The one thing I should have mentioned on the other one, anything for sales tax, I've estimated at 3.5% increase as hopefully a conservative number there. And we always do budget our sales tax conservatively because, as you know, we don't ever know exactly what our consumers, how they're going to act or react in certain markets, so, or in certain economical times. So 3.5% on the sales tax is what I've shown here as an increase. What you'll see is that we have the transfer to the debt service fund that accounts for the debt service payments. We do have dollars left in this fund. I did estimate here on the 2022 column $1 million going towards the base grant match. However, since I put this together, we've had additional conversations as to how we might be matching those funds in for the base grant. And so that number is going to change, but we'll be bringing that plan to you soon, probably in the next few weeks. So that number itself and the 22 estimate column may change, but it shouldn't change what we're planning for 2023 budget. We can, if we want to budget a reserve in there for 2023. And actually, we probably should, in case there's some other improvement you want to make out there with these funds. But right now, we're estimating that there will be somewhere around the 3.7 million left in ending fund balance at the end of 23.
We've talked a lot about how much would increase, and you're right, it's kind of how much, we can look at our history and see how we've increased our sales taxes each year, each month, but then again, we don't know what tomorrow brings. So yeah, you're right, I think it's probably best to stay conservative on that.
I did, on the estimate column, what I did is I took our actuals from the first 4 months this year, because that's all we had at this time. And then I used the actuals from last year, which we know that those are actually gonna be higher than last year because of the way that we've seen them come in. So that, even our estimate in 22 is, in my opinion, extremely conservative. But then I applied the 3.5% on top of that. So I might be ultra conservative there, but we don't have anything where, this is not one of those funds where being ultra conservative in our estimates is going to hurt you in any way. Simply because there is enough of a fund balance here and no mandatory payment that's not being covered. You're also not applying property tax here, any of those things that would be negatively impacted.
Do you know what the rate of that bond is? I mean, is there, I know you said there's no mandatory payment, but is there any benefit to prepaying part of that? And maybe a discussion to have later, but I mean,
we can certainly look into that. One of those is the, yes, one of them was the long-term, it does not pay off until 2050. And I would think that we would want to certainly pay that off sooner, especially if there's funds available at the end of this. Yes. The other two mature, I'm sorry, in 2026. So those are relatively close.
Commissioners, any other questions on this special sales tax for proximity park fund?
So looking at that, with that, like she just mentioned with that bond, there's other bonds being paid, right? I was just looking at the 884,000 that's being transferred with a balance of 5 million. I guess potentially, so I can know, so if someone asks, if we're making loan payments, transfer to debt service of 884,000 with a principal balance of 5,200,000, how that works out to 2050, I guess. And that's probably something I could go find.
Yeah, I can give you the debt schedules if you want. Those debt schedules are all part of the bond issuances, okay. And so that's all public record. That's all part of whenever we do a bond issue. Those debt payment schedules are all part of the document.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we can certainly. I can get you even this sheet that'll show you.
I just have proximity parks. There's a lot of questions about, and so I just want to be able to answer those.
Sure, absolutely.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to the equipment reserve fund.
All right, so this is yet a completely different type of fund. This was originally put in place to reserve monies for future purchases of vehicles and equipment. This is the equipment reserve fund is set up under state statute. It is something that you can use for collecting or reserving those dollars for future purchases. One of the big questions that we had when we came in is how this, when I got here last year, was how is it being used? Where are we at on the dollars? What are we saving for right now? So what we did want to show you was where we are right now. So basically this fund doesn't necessarily have any annual payments coming from it. We inserted an additional column here for you to kind of see where the expenses had been made in the past. But right now, you do have dollars in here for the purchase of a street sweeper that have come from the stormwater fund. You have dollars in here for the future purchase of a rescue vehicle for the police department. You have monies in here for a replacement of computer hardware for the IT department. And then also there is some dollars that were transferred in here last year to be used on a future software upgrade and also shows the potential of that additional transfer that was requested when we talked last week during our budget process. The only expenditures that we're planning or would potentially happen in 2023 would be the software update, should you move ahead with that, approving that, that project. So we do show that the designated funds or those reserve funds is the $250,000. I put those there because those are the dollars that are reserved for these other items that you had already agreed to set money aside for and had been transferred in prior budget years. And so we wanted to be able to show that those are earmarked for something already. They're not just free savings dollars that you could transfer out and use for anything that you want without impacting something that we'd already been working towards. The total there at the bottom, though, the ending fund balance is $32,850. Those are available dollars. So something that we might think about doing is when we come back and we take a really hard look at that list of vehicles and equipment or large purchases that have been presented for 2023, we come back to this and we say, okay, well, there's $32,000 in here. Might that fit one of those expenditures that we think is a priority in order to not impact one of those funds? Or we can come back and redesignate those dollars. And the reason we would have something like that is, for example, we had transferred $30,000 in for a mower purchase for building maintenance, but we only ended up needing $18,000, right? So there were leftover dollars from that. There was a savings from purchasing it for a lesser dollar amount. So those become part of your ending fund balance. So those are, I mean, that's the purpose of the fund and why there would be a balance in there at this point. Do you have questions about how it's being used or what we might use it for in the future? Our goal eventually would be to be transferring dollars in here for a vehicle and equipment replacement plan that is yet to be structured, but we are getting there with the plan, and then it would be available dollars. Right now, that's a challenge because of the cost of vehicles and equipment doesn't necessarily leave a whole lot of extra free funds available to be transferring in there, but that would be our goal in the future.
Commissioners, any other questions on this budget? All right.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Now we'll move us on to comments by the city manager.
I have one quick question as a clarification. Did you, because there was a lot of people talking at the same time last week. So on Lakeside, do you want to leave the waiver of the impact fee in? I see a no.
I personally let it go.
Refresh my memory, what did we do the last time?
You waived the impact fee if construction began within 12 months, but you were wanting to jumpstart the housing market at the time.
Okay. Well, I thought as it worked because all of those lots got built on, right? Not necessarily because of that. Maybe we can ask one person that did build on one, if that made a difference.
I don't think the impact fee made a difference.
Okay.
I think when we're looking at individuals who are going to spend, between 150, 200,000, maybe even over 200,000 to build a house, and it's a $1,500 impact fee. I don't know that that's going to say like, yeah, I'm going to do that this year in lieu of last year. It's like at that point, I don't know. I just don't know that it's going to spur what we're looking for. I think that we already have hunger in our community to have more housing, and
Unlike it was 4 years ago.
when we set it up originally, when we were looking at like, 5 new houses.
Okay.
Well, like we have stated before, we have, the right to say yes or no when it comes to any bids that come in. And we could see, if, or get, input from the community, whether it's, no, I didn't put a bid in because of the $1,500 impact fee. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I'm in favor of not having the waiver, and just leaving it in there. And, like I said, the sealed bid didn't work the first time 4 years ago. We can always, switch it up some and come back with another option.
I would agree, yeah. I think we can.
No.
No waiver.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, moves on to comments by our city commissioners. Commissioner Graves,
I have no report.
Commissioner Kaler,
None at this time.
Commissioner Clayton,
Not at this time.
Commissioner Skidmore.
I'll just say quickly that there are a lot of things going on in town this weekend, and the parks look great. I know it's been tough to keep ahead of the grass mowing. Dennis is not in here to hear this, I guess, but anyway, I thought the parks look great considering as fast as grass has been growing and the help we had to get it done. The parks we have, it looked great, so congrats.
Thank you. Comments by the mayor. The only comment I have is kind of goes along with the grass comment, just to remind people of my little PSA last year. A lot of lawn mowing going on. I noticed a lot of it in the streets. If we could somehow get it back in our yards, that'd be great. It does a lot of damage to the stormwater system that we have, and certainly want to keep that up to.
It's good for motorcyclists.
That too, and the dangers that it motorcyclists and bicycle riders and things like that, so. Other than that, that'll move us on to our announcements. We have a regular meeting at 8 o'clock this Wednesday morning. And then we have our study session next Monday at 4, and then our Memorial Day study session has been canceled. Is there anything else to come before the commission tonight? If not, I will adjourn.